Once, there was a rich, powerful king. When he came out of his castle and looked around, everything he could see belonged to him. He had riches, he had fine clothes, and people who worked for him. He had everything that he could want, except for water. When his servants had gone to take water out of the well that morning, it had gone dry. So he issued a decree. Go and tell all the people across my land that if there's a man out there who can come and dig a new well that provides everlasting water, well, I would reward that man handsomely. His servants went all across the land to tell the people the news. Now, just to the side of the king's castle, there was a great forest. And on the other side of the forest, a very small cabin. And in that cabin lived 3 brothers. Well, Tom was the oldest brother, and Tom had done some growing that year. He walked around acting like he was a man, bigger than he really was. Maybe you know some people like that. He looked around and said, "Look at me, I'm a man now." Well, Tom had a middle brother named Will, and Will had grown just a little bit that year as well. Still wasn't a man, but taller than he had been, and he held his shoulders out. He said, "Me too, I'm a man too. Look at me and listen to what I say." Well, Tom and Will had them a youngest brother, and he was the most foolish and fancy-free of all of them, and his name was Merrywise. Merrywise had a mind that was filled with wonder, and he was always listening to things and lost in imagination. Soon word spread through the forest to their little cabin that the king wanted a man to come and dig a new well. And Tom said, "I'm a man," and Will said, "Me too." And they got ready to set off through that forest to go dig a new well for the king to get that reward. And just before they left, Merrywise said, "Well, wait a minute. Can I come too?" They looked at their little brother. If you have a little sibling, maybe you know what they said. "No, Merrywise, you can't come with us. You're too small and always getting distracted." Merrywise knew what to do as the youngest. He said, "Well, please?" And they said, "No, please, no, please, no." And back and forth it went, please and no, and please and no, and please and no, till finally Tom and Will said, "Merrywise, you're driving us up the wall. If we let you come with us, will you stop bugging us like this?" And Merrywise said, "Yeah, I will." "Okay, but we got to get to the king's castle directly. Don't you get distracted." "Okay." Well, next thing you know, they were there in that forest, walking, and before long, Tom and Will were way up there, and Merrywise was way back here, just looking around. And all of a sudden, something flew right past his face. Whoa, what was that? "Brothers, I'm going to go see what that is." But they were too far ahead to even hear Merrywise. He stepped off the path and through the bushes, and right there, stuck into the thick bark of an old tree, was an axe. That's what had flown past his face. It was an axe, and it was cutting that tree down all by itself. And he thought, "Whoo, I could use an axe like that." Wouldn't you think that? Well, that axe came loose from that bark like that, and as it was flying past his face, he reached up and grabbed it. And he pulled the handle of the axe out of the blade of the axe, took those 2 parts and dropped them down into the bag that he brought with him. He ran back up to the path and ran to catch up to his brothers. "Brothers," he said, "I'm back." They said, "What was you looking at back there, Merrywise?" And he said, well, he thought about how foolish it might sound if he told him he found an axe cutting a tree down all by itself. So he said, "Nothing." "Now, we told you, Merrywise, ain't nothing to see out there. Stick with us. We got to get to the castle." Well, next thing you know, Tom and Will were way up there again. Merrywise was way back here. When out of nowhere, big old heap of dirt fell right out of the air, right almost covering up his feet. He had to jump back. And here came another. And then another. It was building up a hill of dirt right there. And he wanted to see where it was coming from. "I'll be back." He stepped off the path this way. And before long, deeper in the woods, he found there was a shovel digging a hole all by itself. And he thought, "I could use a shovel like that." It was flinging that dirt like that. when he reached out and grabbed a hold of it and pulled the handle away from the pan of the shovel. Took both parts and dropped them down into that bag. Snatched it up and ran back to the path. Ran to catch up to his brothers. Brothers, I'm back. What were you looking at back there, Merrywise? Nothing. Nothing at all. Well, stick with us. But you know, before long, they were up there again, and he was back here just looking when, out of the sky, a waterfall started falling. Not over here, not over here. Just right here. Right there in front of Merrywise, getting the tips of his toes wet. Oh, a waterfall here in the middle of the woods? Where could it be coming from? And he went to go see. He could tell it was arcing from over that way in the canopy of trees, so he stepped off the path and went deeper into the woods and found that it was coming down, down, down from right out of an acorn on the floor of the forest. An acorn with a little hole. That water was just spurting out like that, and he thought, oh, I could use an acorn with a whole waterfall in it, so he found some moss and plugged up that hole and dropped that acorn down in the bag, and he ran to catch up with his brothers. Brothers, I'm back. What was you looking at back there, Merrywise? Nothing at all. We didn't think so. Now come on. We got to get to the king's castle. And like that, there they were out of the woods. And there was the king's castle.